Fairest by Gail Carson Levine. Read by Rosemary Hungerford. Chapter 7. I heard a giggle behind me. I took a half step forward. Then I froze again. I couldn't do it. I decided to run. But Uchu saved me. She came to me, tail wagging madly. I reached down and stroked her long, silky ears. Then Princess Rory was at my side. He put his hand on my elbow and guided me forward. "Have no fear. The king is dangerous only when he's hungry. What is your name, so I may tell him?" Asa! I had to repeat myself 3 times before my voice was strong enough to be heard. I stood 2 inches taller than the king, hulking over him. "My dear," he said, taking my hand in his, "if only the ogres were as afraid of me as you are." He was so kind. I forced out, "Congratulations, sire." "Thank you." He passed me along to Ivy. I curtsied. She let go of the king and took my hand in both of hers. Her smile seemed genuine now, different from the smiles she had bestowed on everyone else. "I know how you feel." Her whisper had a Curian accent. She licked her lips. "I was terrified when I arrived here. Petrified. And the wedding ceremony. I'm glad it's over." I was thrilled. I struggled and got out, "Your very graces, your majesty. Congratulations." I curtsied without falling over and hurried after the duchess. The queen had spoken more to me than to anyone else. It was barely dawn. I heard a peep, and then a trill. A lyrebird sang from atop the curtain rod. I heard more birdsong outside my window and from the corridor beyond my door. The birds made for a charming awakening. We should bring songbirds into the feather bed. I'd have to tell father. I had the morning to myself, and I hoped to explore. The Duchess was going to see an old friend. Then we were to attend a centaur performance in the tournament arena. I would see my first centaur. I looked for a simple gown, but the simplest one had so many ruffles in the skirts that I had to hold my arms out stiffly. Moreover, the matching headdress was a bonnet with a 2-foot-long bill. The corridor outside my chamber was empty, but someone was singing nearby. "I sing to outwit the thoughts that come to mind. I walk to outwalk worry, lost lies far behind." I wondered if the singer might be a corridor troubadour. I hadn't encountered one yet, but the castle was known for them. They were servants whose only duty was to stroll through the hallways, singing. Anything might suggest a song to them, a historical occasion, a boar hunt, even a rainy day. The corridor ceiling downstairs, on the entry level, was vaulted, 12 feet high at least. Everything was oh so grand, but the stink of the tallow lamps was a whiff of home. Song lyrics, painted in gold, leaf, and black, covered the corridor walls, each letter as big as my hand. I admired the calligraphy and wished that my brother Ollo, the family artist, could see it. After more twists and turns than I could keep track of, I smelled baking bread and hot ostumo. My stomach grumbled. I followed my nose. I expected to hear the same sounds the feather-bed inn kitchen produced, pates clattering, pots banging, laughter, and occasional oath. Instead, I heard bells, a harpsichord, and feet pounding in time with the music. I reached the kitchen and stood gaping in the doorway. The room was 10 times the size of the feather-bed kitchen. In the center was the harpsichord, played by a wench with lightning fingers and a dreamy expression. Activity swirled around her. Serving maids piled muffins and rolls on platters. 3 men muscled an carcass into a huge oven. A boy peeled a potato that could only have come from a giant's farm. The potato was half as tall as the boy. The pile of peelings came up to his ankles. The bell ringer was the cook, a red-faced woman almost as big as I was. Her arms were striped with bracelets made of tiny bells strung together with twine. She was cooking in 3 frying pans at once, cracking eggs into one, flipping pancakes in another, and frying meat patties in a third. As she worked, her arms shook and the bells tinkled. She shuffled from foot to foot in time to her music, shushing the rushes that were strewn across the wooden floor. As if a signal had been given, everyone began to sing a morning song. "Climb the day, drop your dreams, possess the day." I longed to be part of it. "Uncloak your eyes and shine the day, invoke your voice, impress the day." I joined in, singing softly. "Stretch and yawn, now is the beginning." I took a step into the kitchen. A serving maid carrying a stack of dirty plates bumped into me. "Now is the—" The dishes went flying. Crash. Silence. How could I have been so clumsy? The plates were rimmed with gold. They would cost a barrel of Yorthies to replace. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean—" Everyone was staring at me. A frozen moment passed. Then everyone was curtsying and bowing. A man with a broom headed my way. The cook moved her hands off the flame. "What can Frying Pan do for your ladyship?" Her face was expressionless. I crouched and picked up pieces of broken china. "I'm sorry, I should have—" The woman repeated, "What can Frying Pan do for your ladyship?" From the floor, I said, "I'm not a ladyship. I'm only an innkeeper's daughter. I thought—" "Frying Pan thinks the innkeeper's daughter should leave the kitchen." Her voice rose. "Frying Pan thinks the innkeeper's daughter has no business interrupting the king's servants. Frying Pan thinks the innkeeper's daughter should get out." Chapter 8. I stumbled backwards through the kitchen door and stood outside, feeling miserable and beginning to be angry. It wasn't a crime for a guest to enter the feather-bed kitchen. The door opened. The serving maid I'd collided with slipped out. "Mistress, I'm sorry about the dishes. I didn't—" The maid shook her head, causing the ribbons on her cap to jiggle. "It was my fault. I've been stepping wrong all morning." She was a pretty girl, near my age. I envied her appealing, heart-shaped face. "Will you or Frying Pan have to pay for the dishes?" "No, someone breaks something every few—" "Sweet, that's what's worrying you? Us paying for the crockery? You sweet." But then why had Frying Pan yelled at me? Frying Pan would yell at the king if he came into her kitchen. "Are you hungry?" I admitted I was. The maid, whose name was Izoli, slipped back into the kitchen and returned with 2 muffins and a russet apple wrapped in a napkin. Then she went back to her duties. I was sorry to see her go. I returned to my explorations, nibbling on a muffin. The apple I placed in my pocket to toss away later. When the second muffin was almost gone, I heard a man singing and people laughing. The entrance to the Hall of Song was a few yards ahead. I believed I was hearing the composing game. My favorite! At home, I excelled at it. I finished eating and stopped in the doorway to listen. Here I wouldn't collide with anyone. Here I wouldn't be noticed. A courtier was leaving the stage, circling around a mound of books. It was the composing game. A dozen people sat in the first row of seats, Prince Jory among them, Uchu at his feet. The dog raised her head, and then raced up the aisle to me, tail wagging enthusiastically. "Oh, no!" Everyone turned to look. I put one hand in front of my face, curtsied, and began to leave. A woman's voice called out, "Wait!" I stopped. Uchu put her paws on my chest and tried to lick my face. The prince exclaimed, "Uchu, down, come!" The dog ran to him. The woman came up the aisle to me. She was Lady Arona, the damsel who had sung to the king and queen on the receiving line, the one who'd made Ivy jealous. Today she wore a violet gown with a lace fan collar. In place of a bonnet she wore a pearl handband, and she looked fetching. "Providence has come to your rescue, Jory," she cried gaily. She curtsied to me. I curtsied, feeling my blush begin. She said, "The prince has been telling us and telling us that he'd do better with a partner, and here you are." She held out her hand. "Please join our game." Her face was gleeful. Was she being cruel? Perhaps she thought it amusing to pair the prince with a gargoyle like me. I wanted to refuse, but I feared what might happen if I did. They were courtiers. I was an innkeeper's daughter. I curtsied again and took her hand. Prince Jory, looking disconcerted, said, "Arona, the young lady doesn't want to rescue a hopeless cause." He didn't want to sing with me. I wished I knew what to say to get us both out of it, but I was too shy to speak, even if I'd had the words. "Rescue a princess?" Lady Arona said. "Of course she does." Prince Jory turned up his palms in defeat. "I'll welcome any help she can provide." Lady Arona started down the aisle, towing me by my hand. My hips and Dame Ethelie's skirts couldn't fit in the aisle with her. I followed at an awkward angle. When I reached the others, they stood to greet me. I wanted to sink through the floor. The prince said, "You're the Duchess of Elixir's friend, aren't you?" He remembered the fool I'd made of myself on the receiving line. He added, "Lady—" I didn't want to say I wasn't a lady, which would embarrass everyone, but I couldn't say I was. "Asa." To my horror, Prince Jory introduced me to everyone. There was a flurry as they curtsied or bowed. I curtsied as he announced each name. The names flew by. There were a count, at least 2 sirs, several ladies, a baroness, and a duke. At last it was over, but then one of the women said, "Where do you hail from, Lady Asa?" My throat was dry. They waited. Trying to help, Prince Jory said, "Do you live near the Duchess?" If he'd been right, I'd only have had to nod. I shook my head. "Monta." My voice was a croak. One of the men said, "That's near Kyria. Do they even know how to play the composing game there?" Irritation gave me a bit more voice. We play often. Lady Arona said, Pray tell us your impressions of Antio Castle. My impressions? The cook was unfriendly, the nobility were too friendly, the prince was kind. I sent him a look of appeal. I see your design, Arona, he said. You've begun to fear Lady Ace will outdo you, so you want to postpone your turn. No such thing. Let the competition continue. She turned my way. You're next after me. Count Amosa, please. Next. The Count, a middle-aged man in scarlet hose, picked a thick tome from the pile of books and skimmed through it. Ah, here, this part. I took a seat at the end of the row, a seat away from Prince Ajori. Uchu sprawled on the floor between us. My heart was racing. Singing was the best part of me. If I could make any sound come from my throat, perhaps I could do well. Lady Arona took the book and started up to the stage. Prince Ajori whispered, She's one of our best composers. She looked over her selection. Amosa, I didn't believe you capable of such cruelty. The books used in the composing game are dense and dull. The referee selects a passage and the singer must invent a melody on the spot. The singer is allowed to repeat words, but not to change any. When all the players have sung, everyone votes on which tune was the best. In the composing game, best means silliest, the tune that made everyone laugh the hardest. Arona began to sing. The tune she came up with was martial and dramatic. She could have been singing about a battle. The Upeco pig is prone to boils. Lady Arona sang stirringly about the many methods of lancing a pig's boil. I laughed along with everyone else. The prince laughed most merrily of all. When she finished, we all waved our hands in the air. She curtsied and left the stage. I was going to have to stand on the stage. I'd never been on a stage. At home, we didn't use one. Prince Ajori whispered to me, We'll do respectably. That's the most I ever hoped for. He looked rueful. And the most I ever achieved. Then he smiled. I was too frightened to smile back. We rose and approached Count Amosa. He marked a page in a book and gave me the book, which I dropped. I bent down for it. The Count and Prince Ajori bent down too. I knocked heads with the Count. Prince Ajori picked up the book and passed it to me. We both mounted the stage, followed by Uchu. I clutched my book so hard my fingers hurt. I raised it to hide my face. My book was the second volume of The Encyclopedia of Sleep. Prince Ajori had volume 1. The procedure for duets is for each player to sing a sentence in turn. Then, at the ends of their passages, they start over, both singing their separate pieces at the same time. Prince Ajori courteously let me go first. Show me what I must aspire to. It's advantageous to be first. The first singer sets the tune. But I couldn't concentrate on the page. The letters seemed to be squiggles. I squeezed my eyes shut and opened them again. The squiggles formed words. My passages were harder than Lady Arona's because it was less tedious. The duller the subject, the easier to inspire laughter. My section contained suggestions for people who have trouble falling asleep, and if some present had that difficulty, they would be genuinely interested. I'd have to struggle against their interest. I read the passage and tried to think of a single idea. Count Amosa said, Innocent lady, please begin. Uchu whined. I curtsied and looked out over the heads of my audience, too frightened to make a sound. People shifted in their seats. I wanted the prince to think well of me, but he wouldn't if my throat was paralyzed. He wouldn't if I lost the game for him. My voice finally came, as a squeak. The following are 16. The squeak was an accident, but someone, bless him, chuckled. I repeated, 16, on a higher note than even Lady Arona's high soprano had gone. I dared to glance at the prince and saw he was smiling. Elated, I sang, 16 methods for... I opened my mouth wide in an unmistakable yawn and drew out the next word. Falling. On a falling pitch until I heard laughter. There! I repeated, falling, and Uchu began to howl. I had never sung with a dog before, but I harmonized. I finished my piece that way, with Uchu's accompaniment, and the laughter almost drowned us out. It was Prince Ajori's turn. I could face him now that I'd performed well. He was nervous. I saw it in his expression. I smiled to give him courage, as if I could do such a thing. He sang, Some bed frames. His voice was a beautiful baritone, without a hint of gravel. But his tune was nothing extraordinary, lyrical, not funny. He was witty in speech, but not musically. Luckily, everyone was still laughing from my performance. I was able to look at them, since their attention was diverted. They regarded him happily, ready to be pleased. Are made of... He hiccuped. A wonderful idea. Everyone laughed. He turned to me, and I knew he wasn't sure when to stop. He could go a while longer. I nodded and kept nodding. He kept going. I listened to the laughter and noticed when it crested. I stopped nodding and indicated with my eyes that he should move on. He got it. Hickory, Bart, Dick, Dick, Dick. He sneezed, by accident or design, and there were shouts of laughter. A few more words, and it was my turn again. I borrowed his sneeze and added a new element, a snore. When we sang together, the hall rang with hiccups and snores and yawns and sneezes. Uju stood and barked. It was a triumph. We were a triumph. Then we were finished. Uju stopped barking. I ran off my stage and sank into my seat. Prince Ajori sat beside me. "We're going to win," he whispered. "I've never won before." Count Moses selected a book for the next player. Prince Ajori added, "But then I never played with Lady Asa before." Oh, I felt my blush rise again. "Thank you." "Thank you." I smiled and rose. I couldn't stay here pretending to be a lady. "I must go." I was able to speak without stammering. "The Duchess expects me." I curtsied and laughed. I felt lightheaded and happy as I'd ever been. This was what should happen in royal castles. This was a memory I'd have my whole life, singing with a prince, laughing with a prince. As I turned into the corridor, I heard one of the courtiers say, "Such a voice! It's unfortunate Lady Asa's mother was a hippopotamus." My happiness evaporated. I heard people laugh. Courtiers could be as cruel as anyone. Was the prince laughing too? I hope not. I thought not. He wouldn't laugh at someone's expense. Perhaps my seat would be near his at the sing tonight. If he still seemed friendly, I could ask him who won the contest. We can congratulate ourselves if we'd won, or commiserate if we hadn't. If only Dame Ethelie's gowns were more becoming. If only they didn't make everything about me look worse. In the distance, the corridor brightened. I hurried towards the light and entered an indoor courtyard, which was the hub of my corridor and three others. Benches circled the fountain where water spouted from the mouths of marble singers. The courtyard was empty. I sat on a bench. If I lived in the castle, I'd come here to escape the people who taunted me. When I returned home, I'd tell Father we should have a marble fountain at the feather bed. He'd laugh and laugh. I loosed his voice coming from a male statue. "Yes, and a golden chamber pot in every room." I loosed Rebecca's voice from a female fountain singer. She changed the subject. "Which do you fancy more?" she sang. "The prince or his dog?" Yari's best voice rang out. "No matter. Does the prince fancy you?" I blushed. Yari could always make me blush. Mother's voice came from another statue. "I don't fancy that frying pan. We wouldn't keep her." Mother brought me close to tears, as her sympathy often did. I stopped losing. Behind me, someone applauded. My stomach clenched. I didn't want anyone to hear me lose. Moreover, Aorthians never clapped. I turned. It was the Queen.